Hi, I'm Frankie Smith, founder of Frankie's, a financial education network dedicated to empowering you have the confidence to be bold with the financial decisions that you're making. And this is season 2 of Talking Frankly with founders and investors. In each episode, I talk to investors and entrepreneurs about their own financial journeys, whether it be thinking about business ideas, fundraising, pitching, scaling their companies, exiting, all whilst juggling managing their personal finances. Through their stories, you'll find insights to help you on your own financial journeys. In this episode, I'm joined by Simon Rogerson, CEO and founder of Octopus Group. Simon left his career in asset management in his early 20s to launch Octopus with 2 other co-founders. He found his initial investment by flicking through the yellow pages to find his first investors. A remarkable story, and wow, what a business he has grown into the Octopus that we all know today. Join us in this episode as Simon shares his story, his journey to date, and the lessons that he's learnt along the way, both personally and with the business. So joining me this afternoon for the next episode of Talking Frankly with founders and investors, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Simon Rogerson from Octopus Group. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you very much.
I'm so glad to have you with us today. So Simon, you started Octopus Group when you were in your early 20s. Can you tell me a little bit about what the inspiration was to launch the business?
I think if I'm really honest, the inspiration was naivety. So I was 24 years old. The other 2 founders, one was 23, one was 25. And being really honest, we just didn't know any better. Okay. We worked at an organization called Mercury Asset Management. It's one of Europe's biggest fund management companies. What we did know at that time is that financial services was a bit broken. So at the level of trust between consumers and the providers of either investment products or advice just wasn't working properly. You know, consumers in the UK are generally, not being nasty, they're financially illiterate. It's really difficult to understand what's going on. Sometimes because the industry uses lots of jargon, they make things really complicated. And so sitting there, working in that industry, thinking, look, there's a fundamental breakdown in trust. Maybe we could do something about that. But and then you leave, and the reality of building a business is, oh my God, I really don't know very much. Yeah. And it's unbelievably difficult to do. But at the time, you're kind of carried away with the excitement of being really young, being naive, had no idea what was involved in building a business. But that rude awakening was that, exactly, nothing to lose. I often say to people when they're really young, just have a go at it. You know, I didn't have children at the time. I didn't have people depending on me. Yeah. And often people say, oh, we haven't had the experience. Right? Often experience teaches bad habits. You know, solving things from first principles is often a really good original way of doing things. So, but then there was the hard slog of the next, in our case, probably about 5, 6, 7 years of trying to work out how we made the business successful. But
And when you, amazing. And when you decided to make that step, what were the first things that you did to get the business underway?
I'll try and paint a picture for you, right? So Mercury was one of Europe's most successful fund management companies. So they used to have their meetings with the portfolio companies that they were invested into on the 6th floor. And the 6th floor had Monets and Picassos on the walls. It had carpets that were thick enough to lose your shoes in. And they had, if you asked for a cup of tea or coffee, a butler with white gloves and coat and tails would come along and bring it to you. That was the environment we came from, right? One of entitlement and kind of a bit of softness. And we left that environment to start Octopus. Our first office was a shared office above a cost cutter supermarket, which is still there in Farringdon. If you look left when you come out of Farringdon Tube, it's still there, with 2 other companies. We're in this open plan office. And then we're like, okay, we're going to write a prospectus to raise money. We literally spent months and months obsessing over almost every single word in our business plan, which, by the way, you shouldn't bother doing. Writing a business plan is almost irrelevant. Nothing we wrote in that plan turned out to be correct or true, and it doesn't really matter. But working in that environment, and the harsh reality of a startup, and then you're like, okay, well, how are you going to raise the funds to get started? We wanted to set up a regulated investment company. To do that, we needed to raise just over £2 million. We didn't have many friends with any money. So once we'd exhausted our families and very close friends, we thought, well, how are we going to do that? So we used the Yellow Pages. And the Yellow Pages, for young people who don't know, is a phone directory. We spent 9 months cold calling about 15,000 people out of the Yellow Pages from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, trying to raise that money. And it took us 9 months because we weren't very good at it. And eventually we ended up with 84 people who gave us the money we needed to start Octopus. And then the journey really began. But if you just compare those two environments, you're at Mercury with someone with tails bringing you a cup of coffee, asking impertinent questions of chief executives of great big businesses, to you got another 8 hours of cold calling for the next 9 months. Crack on, right? That will build resilience and a pretty hard skin pretty quickly, which is what you need as an entrepreneur.
And did you see in your other co-founders, what was it that you saw that brought you guys together?
Again, that was massive naivety as well. So we didn't sit back and say, look, this is going to be a great blend of skills, the three of us. We were just friends. I was really good friends with Guy, who when we set the business up in 2000, he left in 2014 when the business was, I guess, a bit bigger. And he wanted to go off and do his own thing and almost start again. And Christoph still works in the business. I'm really good friends with Guy, pretty similar personalities. I joined Mercury in the same year as Christoph, along with another 24 graduates. First thing we did for the first 3 months was a training program. It was pretty clear within 2 weeks that the smartest person in the room, including the tutor, was Christoph. Right, so it's a logical place. He used to be nicknamed Two Brains. So logically, that was a great place to go. So it doesn't matter if you give him numbers or words, he can read them really quickly, and he just works out what needs to be done and then just cracks on with it. And Guy was a brilliant salesman. He sold ice to Eskimos. Okay. So, and that was a nice combination. And in the 14 years we're all working together, I don't think we had a single argument, which is super weird. Right? And you pretty quickly work out what roles people are going to do and what makes them happy and what makes them successful. But, it was trial and error in our case. We'd never done it before.
And what was where did Octopus come from? Where did you get that name?
Do you want the true story or the made-up one?
Let's go for the true story.
True story. True story was we're all sitting at Mercury thinking, well, look, we're going to resign. We're going to do our own thing. Who's got an idea for a name? Right. I really care about branding. I really care about marketing. I really care about language. I think most companies don't communicate very well. Kind of instantly forgettable. There's not much personality in how they communicate, either in the name of the company or the words they choose, whether they're writing letters or any kind of copy. And so I sent an email out to my friends I was at university with and said, we're going to leave. We're going to set up our own company. Here's what it's going to do. Has anyone got any ideas for names? Right. And just remember the context here is most financial services companies call themselves after gods or planets, which tells you pretty much everything you need to know about this industry in terms of what people think about themselves. My friend came back and he wrote this page-long email saying the company you're going to create is going to be X, it's going to be Y, it's going to be Z. And then he created some suspense by hitting return. So I had to go scrolling down to see, and therefore the name is Octopus. I read the email, saw the end of it, I thought, oh my God, that is brilliant, genuinely genius, because I wanted a name that was visually could be interesting, as in the little tentacles, and also memorable from what it sounded like. And so I was really excited. I jumped up from my chair, walked around the office, and Guy and Chris sat next to each other, and I explained it to Guy and Chris, and I gave them a big lead up, and I said, and therefore, the name is Octopus, what do you reckon? And they said, well, that's what you want, that's fine. And I was like, but then actually, when you start thinking about it, Steve Jobs called Apple. Apple was a placeholder name while he thought of a really cool techie name. And the more he got used to Apple, the more he liked it, which is simplicity. If you have children, when you have children, you'll buy an A to Z. You'll stick it on the wall in your kitchen, and A will be for apple, E will be for egg, and O will be for octopus. And the mobile that babies have above their bed, and the stories, and it's not the literary definition of a primary word, but it's very memorable, and the mix of consonants and vowels. So it's massive hindrance right at the start to call an investment company Octopus. Massive advantage once you get to a certain scale because it has 100% name recall. So when you say you work for Octopus, people remember it. So.
And did you find in those early days you were having to spend your time explaining kind of the method behind the name, or did people just get used to it very quickly?
Not really, actually, because I think people, it's more explaining what are you little, not being disparaging about myself. What are you little children doing building an investment company, and why should I give you any of my clients' money? And what are you going to do that's different? So it's explaining the person and the values behind it and what you're trying to do that's different. Just the fact we called it Octopus was just a bit of an extra hindrance. But you never started with that. You always started with, well, how are you different? And why should I trust you?
And what do you think your biggest kind of challenge has been in building the business? Obviously, it's grown a lot from its early days, but what's been one of the biggest challenges for you?
It's always people, right? It doesn't matter how. We've got 15,000 people across the group
Wow.
now. Business is enormous. It's in loads of different countries. Got more than 10 million customers across the group. It's a big business now.
Yeah.
But the number one challenge when we hired our first person to hiring our whatever, when we hire our 20,000, will just be people, right? Because if you think, I think what makes a business special, a company special, is just how you make people feel.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only thing you need to remember. And how do you make people feel a certain kind of way? Well, it's about values and behaviors. So I can hire millions of people with great IQs and lots of ability to do things functionally. I can hire far fewer people who share my values and behave in a certain kind of way. So that was always our biggest challenge. It will always be our biggest challenge. And that, I think, is what can make a company mediocre.
Yeah.
If you start sacrificing the values and behaviors, you shouldn't ever do that.
And I've heard a rumour that you still interview pretty much everybody that comes into the Octopus group. Is that true?
I don't interview anyone across the whole group because I just wouldn't have time to do anything. But I interviewed the first 600 people we hired from whatever level, whatever they were doing. And I still interview lots of people today because I've done it lots.
Yeah.
Right? So I know the right questions to ask. I think I do anyway. And I think I can largely work people out, and I can work people out really quickly, because if you do the same thing a few thousand times and then you remember, actually, I got all these people wrong. Even if you're really good at recruiting, just remember, you'll still only get 7, maybe 8 people out of 10 right.
Yeah.
So you're still going to get 20, 30% wrong. And if you do, you need to do something about that.
Yeah.
But you need to ask questions people are not expecting to get asked, right?
Yeah.
Smart people, if you ask them traditional questions, will just answer in a smart, traditional way. They'll just give you what you think you need to hear.
Yeah.
You need to ask questions which reveal the personality, the values, the behaviors of that person. And you need to work out what kind of people are successful in your company.
And how have you, obviously, you've gone, the business has grown so rapidly, but also has grown in so many different areas as well. How have you managed to keep that kind of entrepreneurial spirit amongst your employees and you as founders?
I'd say 2 things. So we have one of the things I'm probably most proud of at Octopus is something called the Octopus Springboard program.
Okay.
Octopus Springboard is for anyone who works within Octopus. If they have their own business idea and they want to go and start their own company, come and pitch me the idea. And if we think it makes sense, then we'll give you some of our balance sheet, we'll invest in your business, and we'll set you free, and you'll go off and see if you can scale that business, and we'll do everything we possibly can to help you. If you try and you fail in the first year, then you can come back and have your old job.
Amazing.
And because I know you'll be more useful to me having tried and failed than never having tried at all.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the first thing, creating a culture of risk-taking and entrepreneurship within your business.
Yeah.
The second thing, which is has been a good lesson, when you build new businesses and you try new things, do it outside the mothership. So put them in a different building. Do things differently, because actually the speed the world moves at today is very different to the speed the world moved at in 2000 when we started the company. And what you want in a startup is a certain amount of Street Fighter and scrappiness, and you're going to do things differently. And so you can have anything you want from the mothership, but the mothership can't have anything from you. So it's kind of almost acting as, I say to people, you try and act a bit like Gandalf, like you shall not pass. You shall not go and interfere with that startup, because it's going to do things differently and it's going to run at 100 miles an hour. And that means it needs just to report to one person. And really big companies should do this. Really big banks, really big telcos, they should literally say, I'm going to find the smartest people I can find, and I'm going to set them in a business over there, and I'm going to tell them their objective is to put me out of business as quickly as you can. And you can do whatever you want. And anything you want from the mothership, you can have it, but go build tomorrow's business. But companies don't do that. They're so busy protecting their existing legacy business that they lose sight of it.
Too many cooks ruining kind of the situation too much.
Well, too many cooks, it's just how they think about things, right? They think about, actually, I'm going to focus on my bottom line. You focus on your bottom line, and I'm going to be really short-termist. And if you focus on your bottom line, you will almost by definition be selfish, you'll be self-interested. You won't play the long game. And you won't take the level of risk you need to take. Big companies have whole departments of people who are paid to stop you doing stuff. Right? That doesn't happen in a startup. Right? If you fail really quickly and try again. And those two cultures are, and when a world moving really, really quickly, you better have some of that. You better have some of that risk taking and trying new things. Otherwise, you just won't keep pace.
And there's so many people and people listening to this who might kind of want to start their own businesses or have their own aspirations to do so. Do you think that being an entrepreneur is for everyone? Do you think everyone can do it?
Logically, if entrepreneurship was a disease, it would be the most feared disease in the world, right? Because 99% of people do it, fail, right?
Yeah.
Yet loads of people want to do it.
Yeah.
And now if you look at the stats again, first-time entrepreneurs tend to be not successful, right?
Yeah.
So it's not an innate thing, can I be an entrepreneur or can't I?
Yeah.
It's like, do I want to do it? Is it in me? Is it burning within me?
Yeah.
Knowing that I'll probably fail in my first venture and maybe I'll have to try again and again and again.
Yeah.
Now, the British culture doesn't really embrace that and accept it as much as maybe the American culture does.
Yeah.
But the best advice for an entrepreneur, I think Elon Musk described this, it's like chewing broken glass. It's unbelievably hard work building a business and being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Now, the rewards are amazing. I don't mean financial rewards. I mean the life rewards of being able to build something. I think of Octopus. Got 3 children, love my kids to bits. Octopus comes a very close second to how I think about my children. That freaks people out. So, but that's what's in it, right? If you really love that. So if you were the kid who was always a bit too busy and just couldn't quite turn your head off, and hard work is not something that scares you, and you're quite intense and you're going to give it a go, then you should just give it a go and find out. So I think it's scary, but there's not a rule book, there's not a playbook, it's not like how to be an entrepreneur. It's a mindset. Right, are you prepared for the battle that is to come? And if you are, then give it a go.
Then give it a go.
And if it doesn't work, give it another go.
Yeah. And I agree with what you said. We're so different here compared to America, and we need to embrace the failures more because it gives a better chance for businesses coming up again. What's you've gone, not only have you launched your own companies, you're very active in the mentorship space, and you're an angel investor yourself. When you're looking at businesses that you might want to invest in, can you tell us a little bit about what you look for in those companies and the entrepreneurs that you're backing?
It's just the people, right? So and this weirds people out. Right, so every startup and every entrepreneur I back will send me a great big deck that says here's what they're going to do, and here's the deck will, and the Excel model and everything else will literally show that they are going to be the fastest growing company in the world ever. It never happens, right? So I just want to meet the person. I just want to meet the person and say, look, do I share the same values? Would I go into battle with this person? Would I hire this person? Am I going to enjoy working with that person? And so actually what they're choosing to do and how they're choosing to do it is of not really very much relevance. It's, do I think they have the resilience that's going to be needed? Are they going to work incredibly hard? Are they going to be vulnerable? Are they a kind person? And am I going to enjoy it? And if the answer to all those things is yes, then I'll probably invest.
And you're going in.
Yeah.
And also, you've spoken a lot about what companies should be looking for in their investors. For anybody who might be listening to this who's raising capital at the moment, what advice would you give to them when they're going out pitching and potentially taking on investment? So
money is a commodity, right? And you never forget that, right? And so what do entrepreneurs want? I think they just want 2 things. What did I want right at the beginning of Octopus? What do entrepreneurs want today? I want super talented people and I want distribution. And distribution as in sales. And if the money cannot provide those 2 things, then it is just money. Yeah. It took us 9 months and we had to make 15,000 calls, but we raised £2.25 million from the Yellow Pages, which means that we brought investors in. They just own ordinary shares, just like everyone else in the business. Yeah. And if you bring venture capitalists onto your cap table, into your business, then they'll probably come in with a structure, and that structure will sit above you in ordinary shares, and that will change the dynamic. And so unless those venture capitalists can bring really talented people and distribution, and they will also need an exit from your business at some point in the future, which might mean that you have to sell it or you have to do something a bit differently, I'd think really carefully about all those things. Otherwise, I would just find money from individuals who are not going to come with some of the same burdens, right? If the venture capitalist can add a whole heap of value and you really like the person and you think the person is going to be at that firm for a long time, then that's fine. If not, go and find capital from people. Yeah. And do you think that because the market has been very difficult recently to raise capital, and people often say to me, you've chosen such a difficult time for me personally to launch my own company. And I think, well, it seems to have been a difficult time that every year since I've been working in the industry. So it's like a saying that people like to say. But
What do you think about, what's your outlook for 2025, and what would you be saying to somebody who's raising money at the moment in the current environment that we're in?
I just think it's a bit of an excuse, to be honest. And we set up in 2000, where like timing was everything. We resigned in February 2000. In March 2000, the NASDAQ went into free fall for the next however long.
Yeah.
And it turned out to ended up being quite a good time to launch a business.
Yeah.
And there was a famous economist called Galbraith. And Galbraith said the only point of economic forecasting is to make astrology look respectable, right? So don't come and tell me now is a good time or a bad time and here's what the market's going to do. No one has a Scooby, is my view. So actually, just play the really long game. You're going to build this business hopefully for 20, 30, 40, 50 years potentially.
Yeah.
What the environment's like today is literally of no consequence. The best entrepreneurs and the best ideas will always get funding. And so, it's telling me today's, this environment's really tough.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but let's just have full stop, right? Get on with it.
Navigate through it.
Yeah. And you know what? Out of tough environments often comes opportunity.
Yeah.
And you'll learn a whole bunch of resilience and hard skills that you might not have learned if things were really easy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And, we couldn't have recorded today without discussing Rachel Reeves. What are your views on some of the things that she's been doing in the budget and the impact that that's going to have on entrepreneurs?
I think both political parties, both mainstream political parties, since we set Octopus up in 2000, actually before that, they've created a brilliant environment and culture and funding for entrepreneurs, whether that's venture capital trusts, whether it's enterprise investment schemes, whether it's seed enterprise investment schemes. There's all kinds of capital being deployed towards early stage businesses and entrepreneurs. It's awesome. Literally, other than the US, the UK is the best place to start a company, in my view. Now, the challenge for government, whoever the party is where is the giant scale-up capital? So I look at one of our Octopus Energy, the business that everyone knows, really big business. That business has raised more than $2 billion since it set up in 2015. And it's raised it from an Australian energy company, a Japanese energy company, an American investor, and a Canadian pension fund. And us, Octopus, our balance sheet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where are the other UK pools of capital wanting to build and back one of what I think will be one of the most globally significant businesses over the next 10, 20 years? I can say it's a remarkable business. I don't run it. It's run by Greg Jackson, total freak. And I look at what that business is doing and I just go, it's a shame, right? It's a shame. Where is that pool of capital? What can the government do to encourage more capital into opportunities and businesses like that? And that I think is a real opportunity. And there's all kinds of things afoot that people are talking about, but that's a shame. Yeah, and both a shame and an opportunity.
And one of the things that when it comes to investing in companies, often people are focused on the lack of funding that goes to underrepresented founders and also female founders. Can you talk to us a little bit about what Octopus and yourself are doing to try and level that up?
I think the biggest thing we can do, the biggest thing a business can do there is role modeling, right? So if you have great role models that you people can see, then you're more likely to attract similar-ish people, right? So in the case of women, our ventures business is run by a woman. It's run by Erin Platts. The Octopus Money is run by Ruth. She used to run our investments business. The two co-heads of Octopus Investments, Ali and Christy, are both women. Right, and these are all good things, and we don't appoint them to their roles because they're women. They just happen to be the best people for the job, and we happen to have a pretty balanced business now in terms of female and male representation. But for entrepreneurs, when they see the person running one of Europe's biggest venture businesses is a woman, then it's more likely to encourage other female entrepreneurs. And I think there's a role and responsibility for all investment firms, and especially for female entrepreneurs, to stand up and say, look, here's my experience. This is what you can do. And I think that's good, right? But the capital should always go to the best opportunities, the best entrepreneurs, the best everything else. It's making sure everyone has that opportunity. And there are still bad stories about what happens. So I talked to some female entrepreneurs and they talked me through their fundraising experience and going to see some venture capitalists. I'm like, oh my God, Richard, that should not be okay. All right. It's almost the thing where you go, right, I'm going to use social media. I'm going to let the world see what's just happened here. That is not okay. That's one of the very few great things about social media. Gives everyone a voice, and we live in a world which is super transparent.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Right?
Yeah.
And people shouldn't behave.
But it's amazing that you've got to this place where you've got pretty much even between male and female employees within the company, because that's so rare across the industry, and definitely
particularly
not
in financial services.
Yeah, exactly. And definitely not an experience which I've had when going in to pitch my business, or most of the time when I go to financial advice meetings, I'm often the only woman or one of very few women that are in the room.
But that
which also presents the opportunity and the reason why Frankie's and everything that we do came about. Because so you see that gap in the market.
100%, right? So most people looking for a financial advisor, what's the first thing you want from a financial advisor? I think you want empathy and understanding. I'm generalizing.
Yeah.
Women are better at that than men, right? Yeah, there are very few female financial advisors in the country. Massive opportunity for you. Also, probably almost exactly half the population are women.
Yeah.
And I don't know what percentage of the overall wealth they control. Let's assume it's roughly half. I don't know what the answer is. You probably do.
Yeah.
There you go. Right?
Yeah.
There's a whole market waiting for you. So the opportunity is enormous. So for people listening or thinking about it, literally, there is a massive following wind if you position yourself in the right way and you get the right support at the start.
Yeah.
Not to say it won't be hard, not to say it's not right today, but there are definitely opportunities, and some firms out there will behave, I think, as they should do.
Yeah. No, perfect. So stepping away a little bit from the business chat, tell us a little bit about you, you personally. Is there anything that you do in your kind of daily routine that helps you to kind of decompress from the pressures of running the companies and helps you to kind of lead the business in the way that you have over the last 20, 30 years?
I'm not sure it helps me relax and decompress, what I think it's, but I got divorced a few years ago.
Okay.
We have 3 children, but the children live with me. So, which means it's pretty full on, right? Because you're running a business and you're looking after children, and much as that, 23, 19, 15. When you are a parent to a child, one of the things you learn, maybe not right at the beginning, and certainly not all the time, is you learn to respond rather than react. Right, because certain things will, like just humans, you get set off, or things are a bit annoying, or things are a bit, oh my God, that's so selfish. But that's, it's exactly the same. That's how children are wired sometimes.
Yeah.
But you learn to go, well, if I react to that, it's not going to get the right outcome.
Yeah.
So actually, it's a muscle. I think all these things in life, they're muscles. And if you grow and develop that muscle at home, where you go, I'm just going to respond to that. I'm not going to react to it, I'm going to respond. But it normally means kind of take a little step back, thinking about it. How am I going to get the best out of this situation, that person? What are the lines I'm going to draw where I say, you shall not pass that because that's not okay?
Yeah.
And within that, I'm going to try and be encouraging and create as much empowerment and confidence in the person, whether that be one of my children or somebody at work. So that's definitely a muscle that's evolved that I kind of take to work as well. And my escape is, I play golf. Right, I play golf, and when I play golf is pretty much the only time when my brain switches off, and I don't think about anything to do with work.
Yeah.
Or my kids, actually. I play golf.
Just focus on the golf.
I do, yeah. Which I know is a horribly middle-aged thing to talk about, but there you go. It happened to me when I was relatively young. I went to St Andrews University to play golf.
Okay.
So
you've always enjoyed it.
Exactly. Misspent youth and all that.
And is there a moment that kind of sticks out for you where you went through a kind of really challenging time, either personally or within the business? And how did you turn that into a pivot that's helped you to lead to where you are today?
Well, I wasn't expecting to talk about this one. Getting divorced, right? Getting divorced is a from a personal standpoint, that's pretty painful. And actually when you start reading about it, or you start talking to people, and they go, well, here are the painful things that can happen to you in your life. Number 1 painful thing is a loved one dies. Number 2 painful thing is getting divorced. Number 3 painful thing below getting divorced is being diagnosed with a terminal illness. Wow. Right? So for people that haven't been divorced, you listen to that and you go, that can't possibly be true. Yeah. But the process of getting divorced and just how acrimonious it becomes, I think unnecessarily, where you've got these 2 legal teams fighting against each other, and they are incentivized and encouraged to fight against each other. It's just such a nonsense, right? And that puts life into perspective, life at home into perspective, life at work into perspective, And, out of that, actually, we bought a business. I bought a business called Amicable. Okay. And Amicable is part of the Octopus group now, and it helps people separate or get divorced without needing to use lawyers.
Yeah.
Right. So it's easier and better for both the people involved and if there are children involved and everything else. And that's good. So that a good thing has come out of what is a
And was that an opportunity
process
that you saw through your own experience?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, my dad died a few years ago, and the process of him dying and the impact that had on me and how I thought about that, and also the process of going through probate when someone dies, we created a business called Octopus Legacy. That does wills and probate, and it changes the way, like the hygiene factor, as in getting the will right, doing the powers of attorney, doing probate, but also how would you like to be remembered? Right, that is not a photograph on a mantelpiece. We have technology. We have video technology. You can record things. You can have life advice. You can do all kinds of things. I remember my dad now with a photo at home. That's a bit shit, right? I'd like a lot more than that. But it wasn't set up. I'd like to know what my dad thinks about certain things, and he could easily have recorded it, and he could have left it to me, and I could listen to it all the time, and that'd be super cool. But that didn't exist then, and that opportunity creates Octopus Legacy or Amicable. And that's often when people say, look, here's the business I'm going to set up, it comes out of your own experience. I mean, Sam, the person that runs Octopus Legacy, his mum died unexpectedly in a car crash.
Right.
And he had to go through probate. It was originally called Guardian Angel, his business.
Okay.
And because sometimes when these things happen in your life, that's what you
triggers
need.
You. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that was, it's been helpful that we have a group that's able to do stuff like that.
And it's amazing. I think I lost my mum 10 years ago. And again, it's that emotional side, isn't it? That you kind of learn so much about yourself when you're going through those things. And I think it's shaped me and everything that I've gone on to do. But it's a mindset. And I think we're lucky if you have that kind of opportunistic and positive mindset and the ability to look at things in this way. And it's amazing what you just shared there with your own experience.
Yeah, it's a lens you choose to look at.
Yes.
Look through. Like, I can look through, oh my goodness, getting divorced is so painful and this is what's happened and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in a super fortunate position, as is everyone in my family. Great, right? So that's not... Or I can say, do you know what? Actually, we just didn't get on very well. Yeah. And we made a bit of a mistake and that was a bummer. And we're hopefully both going to live quite a long time. Yeah. And we should move on and we should find other people and we should take all the lessons from our own relationship and say, actually, here's the kind of person we're actually looking for. Yeah. And try and build that relationship and say that's going to be okay. Yeah. Right. And similarly, I can't bring my dad back, but I can think about other members of my family and say, look, how do I want my children to remember me? I'm going to call them so many videos and go like, oh, Jesus, you again. Right. But it's all there. Yeah. And I think just look through the right angle of the lens. Yeah. Right? It's like half full. Being optimistic or pessimistic is a mindset. Yeah. The best individuals, the best companies, you can give other people hope, right? Yeah. And hope is desperately needed in today's world, right? Just everything around you. It can be a bit depressing if you choose to look through that lens. Yeah. Doesn't have to be, right? Yeah. There's remarkable stuff going on in the world that should be celebrated. You just need people who approach things from that standpoint. Amazing.
So inspirational. What do you think is your magic spark? If you had to kind of pinpoint one thing that you think you've done really well at kind of building your companies and getting all of these people behind you to reach the levels that you have?
Kindness. Right. Okay. Kindness, I think. If you imagined Octopus was like any of our companies were people and we weren't in the room, they said, what's Octopus like? I really hope people would say kind. And if you imagine most boards of companies, when they sit down and they talk about stuff, they'll talk about outpricing, outsmarting, outcompeting, outmaneuvering everyone else. It's all about what you do. It's never about values and behaviors. But back to that thing I said right at the beginning, great companies are simply about how you make people feel. There is way too little kindness in the world. I've asked you a question, right? Maybe you'll be able to answer it, but you don't have to. But tell me about a time when a company was kind to you. It's depressingly, it's almost impossible to answer unless it's a really local company who know you as Frankie and go, blah, blah, and they make you feel like a person and special. Companies don't do that, right? There's the big open space for entrepreneurs to have a go at, right? If you build a great company, it'll just be about how you make people feel. You don't need a brilliant idea. You don't need, just steal someone else's idea and just execute it better. And executing it better will be about how you make someone feel. If you make someone feel special, and different and appreciated, they will come back to you time and time again. It goes for personal relationships, it goes for work relationships, it goes for companies, but no one ever talks about it. And that is just a great big opportunity.
And it's crazy, as you say, it's such a simple thing to be kind. And often we overcomplicate things and try to come up with the cleverest ideas. But no, I'm going to take that one. One more question from me. I could literally talk to you all afternoon. But in your kind of business or personal life, who's been the most inspirational person to you and for you? And is there any kind of books or teachings that they've done that you would share with us?
Who's been the most inspirational? I don't really have role models. There are bits of people that I go, oh my goodness, that's remarkable, and I really admire it. So maybe I can talk about that. I don't actually don't read that much. Shoe Dog's a good book. If you haven't read Shoe Dog, read Shoe Dog. Shoe Dog is about Phil Knight's story about setting up Nike. That's a cool book. If I was to choose one person where I go, oh my goodness, they are a remarkable person, I would choose Chrissie Wellington. Chrissie Wellington, if you don't know, she was the multiple winner of Ironman, which is a triathlon race. Like you swim almost 4 kilometers, you cycle 180 kilometers, and then you run a marathon. So like for the nutty humans in the world, like people properly off the spectrum at the far end. And she, I was in an event where she was talking about what she was doing to prepare for the race and the World Championships were in Hawaii. And she said, well, I just needed to put my body through some real pain. And so I knew what my body would do when it needed to. And she was training in Kenya, and she had a really bad illness. I think she had some form of horrible dysentery. And she decided that was a great time to go out for a 6-hour bike ride just to prove to her body and her head that, do you know what, I'm capable of doing this. And if you watch her when she's racing, when she's in the most pain in the marathon, when her body is literally exhausted of everything, she'll start smiling. And there's brain chemistry in that. When you start smiling, you can trick yourself into believing that it's not quite as difficult as you think it is. And so sometimes when things get really, really hard and really tough, if you just smile, actually, it relaxes you and you think slightly differently about things. But I think people who are prepared to I like people who go to extremes. I like people who are extremes as individuals. I just think it's an admirable quality. And I think she is a great example of someone who's done something extraordinary. And she's a remarkable woman. And it's like, I admire that. It's pretty cool.
And have you ever tried an Ironman?
I have actually, yeah. And that was, do you know what? I did it originally because I was interviewing one of these many people I interviewed way back when. And I said, oh, what are you doing at the weekend? I just, as this person was leaving, and he said, oh, I'm doing Ironman France. And I said, oh, what's that? And then he told me what it was. And then that was on a Friday or something like that. And literally for the next 2 months, I kept thinking about it. And I don't know why, because that's just what my brain's like. And then eventually I was like, right, okay, that's enough thinking about it. Get on with it and do it. And it's one of the best things I did a while ago, but it's one of the best things I've done. I did one in Austria. There were like 25,000 people out in the village where it's being held, cheering you up hills, clapping you along the way. Yeah. It's really cool and a massive sense of achievement. Yeah. And hopefully,
crazy.
And probably thankfully, I've outgrown stuff like that. But in the early days of Octopus, all the days of Simon, achievement and goals and almost like the badges of having done stuff were really important to me. Yeah. Don't know why, it's just who I am. Yeah. And hopefully I've outgrown that a bit now, and actually there's a bigger cause, there's a bigger reason as to why Octopus exists and what it's trying to do. Yeah. And it's not about achieving a valuation, it's not about trying to achieve a bunch of money. It's about trying to make the world a better place. And I think we have a platform that can do that, hopefully in a pretty remarkable way. And again, back to the same point, the way I hope we'll achieve that is by people working there and our customers thinking, oh my God, I'd be friends with that company if it was person. It's amazing. It does the right thing, even when no one's watching.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.